When you go to see a motivational speaker, you want inspiration, an aha moment, to learn, to see the world in a different way, to take something with you that changes your business, that changes your life. And I take that seriously. When I was asked to be a keynote speaker at Biohackers World, I needed to bring my best. I needed to prepare and bring something to you that would open up your world and change the way you see things.
The 10-20 game. And so I'm waiting patiently for the right hand. Big thing in poker is it doesn't favor the gamblers, it favors patience, it favors discipline. And ultimately, biohacking comes into it because you really need to maintain calm. You also need to stay hydrated, you need to stay alert. So the bad habits of poker players, that's what really costs them. So finally, I'm on the button, which is I'm in best position, and I look down and see the ace of hearts and queen of hearts. Great hand. So a couple players are in, somebody raises to 20, I raise it to 30, and there's 6 people in. This is the biggest pot I've ever seen. I can do the math, but like 180 bucks, biggest pot I've ever seen. Now, when the dealer is about to put the cards out, this was really important, what you really want to do is watch the other players. And this is something, I ended up bringing into business. It's situational awareness. Don't get stuck on your own hand, read the room, watch others. But I was 19 then, there's 180 bucks in the pot, I got the ace of hearts, queen of hearts, I'm looking. Now, the important part of the story is, what did my opponents miss? I gave away my hand, I had a tell. But nobody saw it because they weren't paying attention. They were all watching their hand. And this is the top game at the Mirage. These are supposed to be good players. So by only looking at their own hand, they missed being able to read me. And I think it's just human nature. We walk around, we're on a sales pitch, and it's me, 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 me. We're not thinking about the buyer. We're not thinking to read the room. I learned the game of poker. I learned, the odds and the math and the betting and the strategy, but something was missing that held me back. And this is what we're going to get into. And again, I wish I had learned biohacking at a younger age. But again, I had the skill. This is a lot of us, right? We have a lot of knowledge, but we weren't able to put it together. So, one of my favorite books, anyone read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Okay, it's a classic, right? Like I read this book, in my 20s and still talk about it. So we want to begin with the end in mind. And for all of us in the room, again, a lot of us are thriving. You got here, right? You're in Biohackers World on a Sunday morning. You're doing a lot of things right. But I also want to play detective and see what might be holding you back. Where is there a blind spot? We're going to learn tools to make better decisions. We're going to communicate better. Really, poker is about emotional intelligence. And then we're going to establish new upper limits for success. Who's ready to level up? Show of hands. Yeah. Let's go to a new level. Let's find the best version of ourselves. And to do that, I really think it's a 2-part process. Do the discovery work. Do the detective work. What's holding us back? What's our blind spots? What are we missing? And a hint, a lot of it's here. And then have a plan to move forward and really manifest what we're after. Anyone remember the show? It was on Bravo called Celebrity Poker Showdown. Okay, I'm taking you guys way back. This is like 2004, 2005. The host of the show was a guy named Phil Gordon. And I was also a literary agent at the time. So I was the guy that got authors deals with publishers, and Phil was my client. And Phil got an offer from Simon & Schuster for a book, and we started negotiating, and Phil said, tell me how much they make per book. Tell me their cost. Tell me their upfront. Most authors are like, oh, they made an offer, I want more. How can I get more? Me, 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 right? Phil wanted to see it from their side. And Phil's not only a great poker player, but a great entrepreneur. If you want to get the best deal for yourself, help others get the best deal. Again, we got to fight the human nature of, I got a good hand, what's coming? And he got me to see the deal from their side. Another great book on negotiation, really human nature, is called Never Split the Difference. Show of hands, yeah. Chris Voss is an FBI hostage negotiator. Talk about like making decisions under pressure. And what he says, just a little hack, when you're listening, to show people you're listening, repeat what they said. He talks about mirroring, which we'll get into. And when they say that's right, that means they know you're with them. And again, we're going to come back to Phil, who played a major role in my life. So the idea of mirroring and matching, you ever see, you're like, maybe you're at a bar or a restaurant, and you see a couple and you feel like they're vibing together, and they literally start mirroring each other's actions. This is like a metaphysical thing. And they're really, the expression, people are in sync, right? Well, this is actually a technique that you can work on. And years ago, I wrote a book with this guy named Amarillo Slim. He was like a famous Texas gambler, had been on the Tonight Show, won the World Series of Poker in 1972. And Nicolas Cage wanted to play him in a movie. So we go to Nicolas Cage's house. This was in Bel Air. And Cage walks out in a cowboy hat. Because he's mirroring, right? He's an actor. He's a method actor. How's he going to make this guy feel comfortable and let him know, I could play you? He mirrors him. So I have a friend, and again, back to this theme of we really got to get out of our own heads. Well, and we're also going to talk about how to get in our heads and shift our mind. Is I had a friend named Brad, and Brad's story was, I'm not a good student, I'm a failure. He dropped out of college 3 or 4 times. He didn't have a college degree, and he felt like that was holding him back. Now, like, think about all of the people that don't have college degrees that are super successful, right? Like Steve Jobs doesn't have a college degree. But for Brad, that was his story. And again, think about yourself. What story do you have in your head that's holding you back, right? Like, I didn't go to this college, or I grew up in the wrong place, or I have an accent, or whatever it is. That was his story. Now, he ended up getting a job with a brokerage company. He liked it, and he was good at it. So even after he dropped out of college, he found something he liked and started to build his confidence, and he managed to finagle an interview with Merrill Lynch, which was a big deal. And he comes to me, he says, I got good news and bad news. The good news is I got an interview with Merrill Lynch. The bad news is I don't have a college degree. Again, his own story. And I said, Brad, and I'm going to ask you, what does the boss at Merrill Lynch care about? Money, right? They care about, can you produce? And the mirroring and matching is, in that business, the word for the big money makers, the rainmakers, is producer. They want you to be a big producer. So just go back. This theme of mirroring and matching. Brad says, I don't have a college degree. I said, Brad, that's what you care about. They care about producing. So how do you mirror and match? You want to dress for success, which I think means dress for the occasion. And in that world, how do people dress? Right? Power suit, starch shirt, power tie. So I want you in a navy suit, starch shirt, power tie. I want you to go in there and use the word producer at least 15 times. Say, I'm going to be the biggest producer in the office. I just want to be the biggest producer. I'll make 100 cold calls a day. I'll run through walls. Produce, 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 produce. I guarantee you he won't ask if you went to college. Brad said, well, I said, what do you have to lose? So he goes with it, and he goes to that interview in his power suit, starch shirt, red tie, and he uses the word producer 15 times. I'm going to run through walls. I want to be the biggest producer. I'll do whatever it takes to produce, produce, produce. And sure enough, as predicted, the guy didn't ask if he went to college, and he got the job because he mirrored and matched. He's currently being investigated by the SEC, but that's a whole other story. But again, this theme of mirroring and matching, who's heard that expression? Right, yeah, you want to make people feel comfortable. You want to read the room. So I think even in business communication, I think emojis are fascinating. You know, if you're on a business thread, you know, and like, I think an emoji here and there can lighten the mood, but like, you start putting like 18 emojis in a text chain, it's not really with the flow of things. Words and jargon. So we want to use the language that people understand. You ever get with consultants or scientists, they start throwing out acronyms and you lose them? That's because that person isn't really thinking about the receiver of the information. When you warm up with people, some people want to get right to the point, some people want to take some time to get to know you. It's all about paying attention. That's really the key. So when you have a winner's mindset, you communicate by walking in people's shoes and understanding what's going to make them comfortable. Who's read the book, The 5 Love Languages? I know I talk about a lot of books. Okay, if you haven't read the book, just take the quiz. It takes 2 minutes, right? And the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, touch, quality time, acts of service, and gifts. I'm back to the same theme, and I mentioned unreasonable hospitality, is taking the time to make others feel comfortable and know what works for them. And they give this example from Dale Carnegie. He says he loves strawberries and cream, but when he goes fishing, he doesn't feed the fish strawberries and cream because they like worms. This happened Friday night. One of the vendors was really upset because UPS, there was a mix-up, and she was, like, oh my gosh, and I gotta make sure I get this. And I looked at her and I said, do you want to be heard, helped, or hugged? Because when people are venting, when people are upset, again, we want to read the room, the whole idea of walking people's shoes, but we also don't necessarily want to guess. So rather than guess what this person wanted, I just said, do you want to be heard, helped, or hugged? And this comes from the very often masculine trait of wanting to be Mr. Fix-It. Back to men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We just want to fix everything. Or I can say, I want to fix everything. So to take a moment and go, what do you want? She stood up, she goes, I just want a hug. Gave her a hug and she felt better. I couldn't fix it. I wasn't going to call UPS. I couldn't help her with the shipment. I just wanted to have some presence and be there to hold space. How about movies? Rounders, anybody see this? Matt Damon. Okay, in the movie, John Malkovich plays with his Oreo cookies and it gives away his hand. So whether he opens it or licks the icing, he figures out that's what he has. So when we talk about tells in poker, this is really like, how do you know when someone's bluffing? And I'm just gonna go through it quickly. The idea is you just want to be present. The number one thing to know if somebody's lying is their motive. Does somebody have a motive to lie, and is there a consistent story? One thing, though, that I find very reliable, there's a human quality that people tend to overcompensate. So if you're at a bar and someone says, I'm going to kick your ass, that guy's not going to throw a punch. Because if they really were, they wouldn't tell you it was coming, right? Or they would just throw in the punch. I'm going to sue you to high heaven. When people feel weak, bullies overcompensate. So we know that if somebody's a bully, they probably have low self-esteem. So when someone's showing off and telling me how great they are, I just feel like strong is weak. Because like in poker, if someone's bullying you, that means they don't want you in the pot because they have a weak hand. I think social media is a fascinating place to observe. So coming from a poker background, and I grew up in the analog age, the whole idea was like, don't give any information, right? Keep your cards close to the vest, have a poker face. And then social media comes and people tell you everything. Like, I'm still shocked at Venmo. Like, I want the world to know that I paid Jamie $12 for a pizza. Like, fascinating. Like, why are we sharing all this? And finally a friend said, well, if you look at all of these posts, they really have two themes. People are expressing love or crying out for love. If someone says traffic sucks, right? Like, why? Why do you want to share that? And I can tell you, and most of us in business, people are looking at us online. Whether they want to hire me to be the MC here or for a business, do you want to be expressing love or crying out for love? Now, if I put really cute pictures of my dog Zeus, I think I'm just sharing love. I'm expressing love, and other dog owners connect to that. But if I'm complaining, and the best example of this was, I met this guy at a networking event, seemed like a good guy, he was a graphic designer, and like I eventually hired graphic designers for things, and all of his posts were like, needed 5 shots of espresso, like I wish Starbucks had like an ultra caffeine drink. everything was like, I'm overwhelmed. That's because he's crying out for love, like life is too much. That guy could use a hug, but I don't want to hire him as my graphic designer. And he lost that business because he was just constantly putting out to the world, I'm overwhelmed. So just be really mindful about what you share. During the pandemic, a friend of mine had a business in Los Angeles, and he was about to sign a 10-year lease on an office space. And the landlord started to pressure him. And this is, remember, like March of 2020, we didn't know what was going on, right? Like, are we going back to the office? Am I going to need less space? What's happening? And the broker just kept saying, like pressuring him, saying, I need you to sign by the end of the day. People want the space more than ever. People are panicked. And thankfully the light went on and he goes, strong is weak. The pressure let him know that the broker was actually weak. He ended up not signing the lease. They didn't go back to the office and he saved millions of dollars. So just remember that human nature. And if you're coming on too strong or trying too hard, look inward and go, what am I overcompensating for? When something goes wrong, when something bad happens, people tend to complain. Anyone know people like that in their life? Yeah. So as a coach, when I work with people, when something bad goes wrong, the 3 questions I bring them back to is, how did I co-create this? What was my role? I showed that previous slide, Jocko, talking about extreme ownership. How did I co-create this, right? We are creators of our world. Second, again, and bad things happen to us, right? Things that we don't control. What is this trying to teach me? If I lose or something goes bad, how can I lose and not lose the lesson? And then what am I going to do next? Really, like when you have adversity, and I understand there's times we want to vent, we want to be heard or maybe helped or hugged, but ultimately, this is what I find winners do. I learned the game of poker, I had success, but something was holding me back. So, was it my actions or was it my thoughts? And I want us to just, if you remember one thing from today, is your life like a thermometer or a thermostat? So a thermometer means all of these things are happening, right, the external world, and then you're up or down based on what's happening. A thermostat says, I'm going to set where I want to be. I get to set the temperature. And now my internal world, I set that, and the external world starts to mirror it. And again, the mind generates reality. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Now, I grew up, I think a lot of us had parents, that's me on a camping trip. My dad organized a poker game. And well-meaning parents, right? Like, yeah, I know you want to go to Hollywood to be an actor, but you're better off being an accountant, right? Or don't get your hopes up. You hear that a lot? I want to protect you. You know, these jobs are 1 in a million. Even like writing a book, it's really hard. Why don't you get a job working for an advertising agency? We're often being told by people with good intentions not to aim high. My dad would say poker's a hard way to make an easy living. He'd tell me these stories. So then back to this guy, Phil Gordon. When I was editing his book, he kept saying in the book that the money is at the top. The money is at the top. So in a poker tournament, as you start getting down to like 50 people, 40 people, most players get more conservative. Because if you go from 50th place to 10th place, instead of making $1,000, you make $1,500. And people don't want to go out. Again, they're fighting human nature. What Phil says is you actually want to get more aggressive because the money is in the top few places. Now, before I'd heard this, again, I had good skills. I knew how to play the game. The most I'd ever won in a poker tournament was $7,000. So I go out to the World Series of Poker, and I have this in my head. The money is at the top, the money is at the top, the money is at the top. This tournament, there were 798 people. The buy-in was $1,000. And as we started getting down, as Phil said, 50 people, 40, 30, 20, I had that chorus in my head, the money's at the top. I had a mind shift. And because of that, because of my inner world and the way I thought, I played differently. And was he right? Not the exact Hollywood ending I wanted, but I ended up coming in second place and winning $102,000. So that was, thank you. That was a real moment of my inner world, my mind shifted. I saw the world in a different way. I had a plan, and then my actual reality changed. It was a known fact before 1954. You couldn't run a mile in under 4 minutes. It was a fact. Everybody knew it. It was in the collective wisdom, right? So what happens in 1954? Bannister runs the mile in under 4 minutes. Massive mind shift, right? What happens next? Someone else does it 46 days later. 3 people did it in a race. 1,000 people have done it. Now it's just one of those things. Now we're like, will anyone do a 3-minute and 30-second mile? But once people started to believe and the collective consciousness shifted, everything changed. So to bring this to you, what beliefs do you have? What's holding you back? And more importantly, how can you have a Bannister effect in your own life, right? Where all of a sudden, whether it's the money's at the top or I believe I can run a 4-minute mile, that's really what we're after, is when your mind shifts, and again, and you have to believe it, your reality starts to shift. So that's the Bannister effect. I want you to walk out of here and go, what's holding me back in my mind? What don't I think is possible? And more importantly, what do I know is possible that I'm ready to go after? So, I think a really big component of this, you probably heard the quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. There's also a great quote, you want to spend time with people whose normal behavior is your desired behavior. So I think if really you want to elevate your life, get around other successful people. You'll start to see what's possible, and it's like that monkey see, monkey do. If they can do it, I can do it as well. I believe one of the fastest ways to get to your mind is through your language and to speak it into existence. So be very careful about the things you say, because thoughts become words, words becomes actions, actions become habits, and then ultimately becomes destiny. So if you want to start with changing your mind, words are a portal in, the people you spend time with, and then ultimately that's going to change your beliefs. Did we accomplish our goal? Right? Do you guys feel like you have a game plan? All right, and then what I want you thinking about today is, what's the first domino? What audiobook am I going to download for the drive back or the flight home? What supplements am I going to take? Am I going to start getting up earlier? Am I going to get morning sunlight? It all starts with, take this momentum into your life.